we just like talk? What's going on?
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to give people a couple minutes to join, but I would love to hear from folks as you're hopping on. Where are people tuning in from? Justin, where are you tuning in from?
I'm from north of Seattle, Washington.
Nice. And I'm in Los Angeles, California. And all right, we have a bunch of folks already here. Tons all over the country. Ooh, South Africa. We have the UK. Hey, if those of you joining us from Europe, I know this is late your time. So thank you. Thanks for joining us.
That's crazy. That's awesome.
Oh, Berlin, Germany. Awesome. This is fantastic. Oh, what a cool group of people. We'll have some polls later that ask the question of sort of what are people's roles, just to get a sense of the audience. But I love seeing where everybody is tuning in from. I see some familiar names too. So thanks, friends, for joining.
We've got one Seattle person.
Another Seattle person.
No, I'm also a Seattle native, Christina.
That's great. And Austin, Texas, my hometown. I love it. Awesome. Okay, great. Well, again, hi, everyone. My name is Tracy St. Deke. I'm the Global Head of Talent at Zapier, and I am thrilled to host today's session with Justin Yan from Netflix. We're going to be talking about how our teams are rethinking recruiting strategy in an era that really calls for more automation and more AI. We're going to talk about what's changing, what's working for us, and what's next. And this will really be fireside chat style. Justin and I will share stories from both Netflix and Zapier, two very different companies at very different scales. So hopefully that will give you a good sense of kind of what the spectrum is. And we'll have plenty of time for your questions at the end. But before I introduce Justin, a couple of housekeeping items. First of all, this webinar is being recorded, and we will email you the recording after the webinar. We also had a ton of questions pre-submitted, so we should definitely have time for live Q&A. So throughout the webinar, though, go ahead, enter your questions in the Q&A tab at the bottom. At any point, you can also upvote questions from other attendees. That's going to help us prioritize. And just make sure you put those in the Q&A box and not the chat box so it doesn't get lost. We also like to say if you run into any technical issues, just refresh your page. That usually solves everything. And we recommend Google Chrome as your browser. So again, thanks everyone for joining us, and let's jump in and get started. So again, my name is Tracy. I lead talent acquisition, talent intelligence, and traction, employer brand, and internal mobility at Zapier, kind of all the things in the talent spectrum. I've been at Zapier for about 3.5 years. And just to get a sense of scale, my team is about 20 people, and we're serving an 800-person company, fully remote. I'm very excited to introduce Justin, who is a program manager for Netflix's HR technology organization. But perhaps even more importantly, Justin and I go way back. We're really good friends. We worked together back in 2009 at Teach for America, which is a national education nonprofit here in the States. And we were both recruiters on the West Coast for TFA. I feel like we might have some TFA folks in the audience, so shout out if you are TFA alum or former staff member. But we worked together for almost 10 years after that. And I got to just say, Justin, from the beginning of us working together, you've always had this innate and sometimes like frustratingly innate ability to think through processes and figure out how to hack to make yourself work less. And to be clear for everybody, it was so that Justin could work less, not so that he could do more. So I love that mentality. But it's been sort of incredible to see you, Justin, kind of take that mindset and approach with you to your work at Meta, then you're working at Netflix, and you've been leading ops for the emergent talent team before you are in your current role. So this is where, folks, he helped design one of the most efficient recruiting operations I've ever seen, from automating a multi-100,000 applicant pipeline without an ATS. So while Justin has recently switched into this new role for HR technology team, I'm really pumped to talk to him today about how he scaled Netflix's processes. So, hey, Justin. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks. It's good to hang out.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. I see some TFA folks in the audience as well, which is really fun. It's a little reunion for us. So, Justin, here's where we're going today and for the audience. So all of this is based off of questions that people submitted as they RSVP'd for this event. So we sort of grouped them together topically, and we're going to try to hit on as many themes as possible based on the questions that you all submitted. So again, I think this is going to be really fun because at Zapier, we spent the past year weaving AI into like all parts of our recruiting and people strategy, from how we hire and onboard and all of that. And so again, Zapier and Netflix are very different. Like we're 800 people. How big is Netflix now, Justin? Like 10,000?
Yeah, around 10,000.
15,000, 10,000? Okay, 10,000. So widely different. And so I think it'll be interesting to see how we're kind of mutually approaching the future of work and talent. So let's jump in. Okay, we're going to kick off with a very short poll to start, just so we can kind of get a sense of the audience. And yes, there will be a recording after the call, and there will also be material sent out with some of our use cases. So which best describes your current role? If you can just click in there, and that kind of gives us a sense of who's out there for us. Oh, I see lots of old friends in the audience too. Okay, cool. All right, we'll see if those, I don't know actually if the results pop up, but well, if not, then we'll get those, and someone who's looking at the results can tell us, but very eager to see who's kind of on the call. Let's jump in. So Justin, I want to start big picture with you before we kind of dive into specifics of some of the workflows that you built. So Justin, again, your background has been at scale. Like, you're all about scale. You teach for America, Meta, now Netflix. And so you've had a lot of experience with like these large, complex organizations. And you've had a really unique view, I think, from the ops side of the house and in your focus in early or emerging talent. So from your perspective, what are some of the biggest things that your companies specifically have been thinking about over the past few years, and how you've had to shift to attract like early talent specifically?
Yeah. I'd say Teach for America is probably the only place that we struggled to attract early talent. Like, it wasn't always someone's dream to teach in a classroom setting in a public school after college. But I've been fortunate enough to work at Meta and Netflix, where we just have thousands upon thousands of people applying to internship and new grad roles every single year.
Yeah.
So most of my time, and I'd say like where I spent my time in those 8 years at those intern programs, was less about attracting the talent and more about how we evaluate that intern talent for full-time conversion opportunities. And it's really been about the context of the companies. You know, Facebook, Meta, back in the day when I was there, 2017, they had a lot of their processes laid out, like how they think about who they evaluate and how they evaluate. We had, managers write reviews after 12 weeks for interns, and then an engineering director would read those reviews in a matter of 5 minutes and decide whether they get an offer or they don't get an offer, right? And so our goal in building the internship program was, how do we support every single student and intern that was in our process so that they had the best shot forward of being recognized for their performance? Because there was just massive bias and inequity throughout that entire process, where, when I first joined, we saw huge gaps in offer outcomes for underrepresented groups, whether they're women or people of color. And over those course of those 4 years, that was just, the system that was built. So we had to figure out, with what we were working with, how do we at scale support these thousands upon thousands of interns so that everyone gets an equitable experience, an equitable shot at getting an offer at Facebook, because it's a life-changing opportunity. So that was a big part of that. But when we went to Netflix, they'd existed for 20 plus years without an emerging talent program. And now we were just trying to introduce young people to a professional workforce. And we got to build it all from scratch. So with that in mind, we kind of, worked with the business to figure out, how we want to evaluate them. So it was less about like supporting them, giving them the best shot because of the systems in place, but building a system that was going to be equitable from the start. And the scale was like much smaller. We were dealing with 100 interns versus 5,000.
Wow.
So for me, it's really less been about like how things have evolved and more about how the company culture has dictated the work that should be done, as opposed to coming in with kind of the views that I think should happen.
Yeah. I think what's really fascinating about that is that some of the shifts that you've had to make in operations, if I'm understanding this correctly, is that you had to really not only adapt to the company context, but also the hiring landscape. So again, you're at big companies that don't have a problem with talent attraction, which is awesome, but you have a problem with scale, or not a problem with scale. You have like a good problem with scale, right? Where it's like you have tons of people coming in, a lot of them very qualified. How do you sort through those quickly and ensure that you're building a system that is equitable and inclusive for everyone? And I think that's just a really important piece about systems. And for those of us in operations or in recruiting and tech who are building systems, is that a system can be built from the ground up very inequitably, not inclusively, right? It can also be built very equitably and inclusively. And so finding the opportunities to do that within the system that you're building seems like a place where there's a lot more attention being given right now in the hiring landscape. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, I think so. Especially with I mean, I think with an emerging talent landscape, just the centralization and the scale and the number of people working in a similar pipeline, it's just so big compared to many like smaller bespoke recruiting roles that you're hiring for.
Yeah.
So we found that like a lot of ATSs, like at an enterprise level, like because they're so out of the box, like they aren't so moldable to kind of address the different needs that different pipelines have, especially in emerging talent pipelines. We're just like getting thousands of the same. It's not just like thousands of applications. A lot of roles get thousands of applications, but they're all the applications that literally all look the same because they all have the same exact experience, having come right out of college with internships and being computer science majors, right? Like, so that was kind of the trick with and the fun about building what we built at Netflix.
Yeah. It sounds like there's some piece of that where because you were able to build it, you could actually be a lot more, again, customizable to the context of your organization and like what you needed, which I think is interesting. I also think there's something that I'm seeing in the landscape where with this huge volume of applications, because even though we don't have an early emerging talent program at Zapier and we don't have interns, we do get thousands of applications for just any role, especially our software engineering roles. And I think one of the big things that you've touched on and that we care about at Zapier is that we want to provide an incredible candidate experience while also being highly efficient, because when you have thousands and thousands of applications, many of which seem the same on face value, and you have to get to know the person, like we have to balance both. I mean, honestly, it makes me really frustrated when I see companies like ghosting candidates. And I'm not talking about like the few that have slipped through the cracks, but no one's perfect. Like we have that happen sometimes too, but as a matter of practice, because you literally have tools at your disposal. You literally have systems you can build with AI and automation so that you can give every candidate a great experience, that you can be a little bit more personal. You don't have to just like not reply to people as well. So I feel like that's something that it's built into the way that you're thinking about your system is you have thousands of intern applications, but how do you get back to all of them? And does that have to be how can that be personal too?
Yeah, and I think that was the cool thing about what we built. So we used Airtable and Zapier to kind of automate all of our stuff. So that that took in the hundreds of thousands of applications for all the roles we had, and it was really fun to just like sit with recruiters and think like, okay, what are all the touch points we want to have with these candidates? What do these touch points need to look like, and what's like, how do we make this efficient? Right? Because I mean, I think in a perfect world, we want to communicate with all of our candidates with frequency, but it's just like hard. Sometimes like the ATS itself makes you click a lot, and like that clicking is not fun. Sometimes it's really hard to sort through people in certain stages and just get things to work the way you want them to work. But I mean, the beauty of the Airtable and the Zapier piece was like you could very easily make views, set rules, set conditions, automate those conditions to trigger at certain times with Zapier, really personalize those emails, and just like give candidates touch points at any point of the stage. Because like we wanted to have an experience that felt good for everyone, that came to our process, whether they got rejected or they got an offer. And we saw many emails from our unfortunate rejection emails that were just like so thankful for the experience they had, for just even being told what's going to happen to them, and then on top of that, giving them resources to kind of explore other things. So yeah, I think like that goes a long way, especially in this environment where it's just really hard to get a job.
Yeah, I think so. And again, I like that you're thinking about how do we build that system from the beginning so that it's not like you had to hire, 20 more recruiting team members to manage this pipeline. But I think that's another thing we see recently, maybe not so much at Netflix, but across the board, I see TA teams that are being asked to do a lot more with less, especially for organizations that are, less than 2,000 people or less than 1,000 people even. And, obviously there have been layoffs in recruiting for the past few years.
Yeah.
I generally think that a lean team is like the new flex for at least teams in SaaS. But I think there's more of a push for talent and people teams to use automation AI to streamline processes. But again, it's like you have to balance that with the candidate experience. And I know back in the day when we started at Teach for America, we used to mail merge a lot. And I think you have always like a good take on like something as simple as that can be very inhuman. It can be like, hi, name X. And it can actually be very human. Say like two words on that. I know you have a hot take on how automation can be personal.
I think that with mail merge, right? Back in the day when all we did was mail merge, like there's like not enough creativity around what people were mail merging. Like people would mail merge static fields like the name, right? But like when it's connected to a spreadsheet, things in a spreadsheet can be formulated and automated. So like you have like multiple layers of nuance of things that can change within a template. And like you can make a basic template sound more complicated than it is, because things in the Excel spreadsheet can shift. And that was the same thing with Zapier and Airtable. Like things don't have to be static that you're just inserting into a message. Like you can make everything in the background also dynamic. And I think it just takes like a lot more creativity and exposure to use the tools to just be better, than just the simplest form of how we use them.
Yeah, I think that's the key from how can automation and AI be potentially even provide a more human experience, or rather, I should say, like a more people-centered experience. I think people sometimes think, oh, if it's automation, it's just a bot and it's very impersonal. I think what you're saying is if you have this sort of builder mindset as you're thinking about your systems, you can actually make your automation and AI very personal,
Yeah.
very tailored to the candidate, and feel like you're giving them so much more value than just like, you know, a mass email or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay, let's actually get into that, because I love this piece around automation and AI builder mindset. And this was kind of like another set of questions that we got. So I want to go to this next piece here. And Justin, again, ever since I've known you, you've just had this really natural ability to think through how to make processes more efficient and to look at something really complex and find a way to simplify it or automate it. So how did this start? And I think we have a fun picture of us because the people wanted throwback pictures. So I've delivered some throwback pictures. So how did your builder mindset start? And was the origin story eating these beignets in New Orleans in 2014? Or was it related to you being a 2-time American Ninja Warrior? Please share.
Yeah, beignets and Ninja Warrior, obviously.
That's how you became so efficient. Okay.
Yeah. So really thankful for Tracy for housing me for all the times I went to do Ninja Warrior. And sad that I didn't get farther than the second obstacle in both those times. But I would say that I've always had like I was a neuroscience major back in college, was pre-med, ended up teaching, and then ended up falling into like HR as opposed to like medicine. So like I think I had a natural like scientific method to my approach that I always found to be like slightly different than like this typical like talent, like people in talent and how they think about problems. But as like I'm also not really good with my words and writing in the same way that those people in talent are. But I think in that, like I've always been drawn to like new technology and tools, and I feel like that natural curiosity has always led me to like waste my time doing that, like spending time with tools, trying to do things. Like for instance, I would often get like, we all get this, we all get like very mundane tasks in HR work that like it's repetitive, it's redundant, it's a lot. And I think everyone should do this in my opinion, but this is something I always do. I always try to spend that time, instead of doing it manually, like figure out how I can automate it. And honestly, it might take longer for me to automate something that I could have just knocked out manually. But in that process, like I'm learning like so much more that then I can further like later apply to a different solution that would require a larger scale that you can't manually do. And it just like that kind of mindset has always been helpful in this space. And like whenever like people send me cool tools or spreadsheets, like my natural inclination is never to just use them, but it's to understand like how the heck they're doing that. So like I'll like make copies, I'll try to break them, I'll ping the person who owns it, because I feel like that's what like HR work is. It's just like stealing ideas from other people and then repackaging in different ways. And that's innovation, right? Innovation is like not always like something brand new. It's just like, how do you take something that's been done before and apply it in a different context to make it work there or to make it more efficient there? So I think like those are kind of my mindsets of just like essentially just wasting time, tinkering around instead of doing the job that I should actually be doing.
I think you're very humble though. I think I'm hearing you're tinkering around. I kind of picture like someone who gets a clock and you're like taking it apart to like see how it works and like putting it back together. I see you doing that. It sounds like with processes. And I imagine you're saying I'm wasting time and I'm spending more time on the front end, but clearly that has then allowed you to say, okay, now I can build this from scratch, or now I understand how this works. And so I can rebuild the system in a different way that is actually more efficient.
Yeah.
So it's probably like takes time to save time.
It does. It does. And I think when I say wasting time, I think people perceive that as wasting time because they could have just done it by then and then they move on to the next thing. But I think like you're putting time into yourself, right? By like learning how to do it in a completely different way.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So this is like, I think, a mindset and a culture piece that needs to be like really, really emphasized, because to your point, it's like, if you can take the time to think about how these processes work and really build them, again, it might take more time on the front end when you could have just like moved that data and copy and pasted it over yourself. But if you're figuring out, okay, how can I automate that so I don't ever have to do it again? That's something that I feel like sometimes people feel like that feels like a luxury if I could figure out how to do this automation. But really what it is it's like short-term versus long-term too. You're
100%.
doing the time and the front end. Yeah. So, okay. So you have this like very interesting, what I like to call, I don't know if you'd call it this, a builder mindset. That's what we would call it here at Zapier. Like a builder mindset where you're like, you have the subject matter expertise of being in HR, of recruiting, for example, but you have a builder mindset that came from, your more scientific background of like, how does this work and how do we pull it apart? So when you're on an ops team and you're working with recruiters, like what's your approach with them to help them figure out how they can make something more efficient? Or how do you like enable your whole team?
Yeah. What's interesting is like, it feels like I feel like everyone should be thinking of that, right? But I feel like a lot of people in talent are so used to doing the work they have, right? Like this is just how it is. Like I have to do these things the way that everyone else does it. And like I just need to just work through it and grind through it. And then so oftentimes people aren't it's not to say that people don't do this. Oftentimes they're like, can we make this faster? Can we automate this? But I think there's also a lot of space in people's work that they don't question those things. So I found it like when we built a lot of the ATS the way we built it, Netflix, and even when I was at Meta with what we had, it was always just helpful to just sit down with a recruiter or sit down with someone else and just be like, tell me what you do in this process. Like help me like understand it fully. And then through that, like I could interrogate and be like, can we do it differently? Like, can we automate this? Can this be different? Well, and then, there's always reasons for why, oh no, like this needs to be more personal, or, oh no, like it's too complicated to do X, Y, Z. There's always a reason that stops someone. But I think that like, if you just sit down and when I found that I've sit down with someone to just understand their processes and interrogated them about it, not like in a bad way, but like really question the things we're doing. And then offer solutions of like, what if we did X, Y, Z in this system or automated it this way? Like how would that feel? Would this free up time, et cetera? I feel like you just come up with a lot more solutions and you're just like working together, your brains together to kind of like untangle it.
Yeah.
It's not like rocket science, right? It's just taking the time.
Well, but I also imagine it's like you have that blend of like this, what I would call this builder mindset. You're questioning, you're naturally curious, but you have some experience with recruiting. So you're not like your IT team saying like, oh, this doesn't make sense without like understanding the value of each piece of the system. So you're really blending the two. So Justin, if you were like hiring people for a talent ops team right now, what are the qualities you would look for? What's the profile you would look for?
That is a hard question to answer. I don't know. I don't hire people.
How would we get more people like you? Like, what are some of the traits that we would look for that have that mindset?
So whenever I like am part of helping build interview processes for like ops roles, like I like to have some sort of activity, like take home activity. And that's usually going to be, it depends on the level. Like when I've hired like coordinator roles, like I'll give them a spreadsheet and then ask them to do a number of things in it and give them the resources to understand how to do those things, right? And there's things that I expect people to do like pivot tables, and there's other things that are like more complicated like formulas, but I won't tell them how to do it. I'll just give them the work, have them do it, and then we get to the interview, we'll like sit down and I'll ask them how they did it, right? And I'll look at their formulas, I'll think of their logic, I'm trying to understand like, did they like just push through this and just trying to grind? Did they have a deep understanding of the formula? Did they learn something new? Like it's just like really trying to figure out like how comfortable people are in like that space, right? And I feel like you just learn a lot.
Yeah.
From how they apply solutions to the different things,
Yeah, it's like, what are the mindsets that people bring and the way that they approach solving that problem? So It's interesting. So at Zapier, we're actually going to launch a hiring for a role on my team very soon. We're going to open it internally at first, of course, but if we don't find the right fit, we'll do it externally. But it's actually a talent acquisition AI automation lead on our talent ops team. And there'll be sort of a program manager for a number of internal projects across TA and our people team. But yeah, we're looking for somebody who has that blend of like familiarity with recruiting and sourcing, but to your point, who's played around and experimented with a lot of different tooling, run experiments, like thought about what is a better way to do this, evolved how things get done with user feedback, and kind of like you, like can really question the way things are done the way they are. Because I think if there's one big trend that I see in talent, it's that people understand that AI and automation is going to bring this revolution to how we hire, but a lot of teams don't know how we're going to get there. And so it's like you need people with these, again, I'm going to use the word builder mindsets to be operationally fluent in, say, talent acquisition or whatever people function or whatever function you have. But then you have to think like a builder. You have to think about how you design processes and change automation and AI for how the work gets done. How do you translate needs into workflows and be able to like iterate very quickly? And so it sounds like it's like that's what you're looking for, is that sort of like curiosity, experimentation. Would you say that's right?
Yeah, and it's hard to evaluate that unless you like can see and feel how they think, because I think a lot of people in town are really good at talking, and I think it's always tricky. It's like actually evaluating technical skill to a way.
Yeah. There's something, okay, well, I'll share. So that's really interesting about how you're thinking about it at Zapier. I can share a couple of things about how we're doing it, or sorry, at Netflix, how we're doing it at Zapier, because this piece around how do you hire and cultivate builder mindsets, I'm obsessed with. So obviously we're a really AI forward company and we're trying to kind of undergo our own AI transformation internally so we can be very AI first, which is maybe easier to do than if you're a company as big as Netflix and as Meta. But Zapier started as an automation platform to kind of connect all the apps that you work with. But with the rise of AI, we've really evolved into this AI orchestration platform. So I'll share 3 really quick things that we teed up to sort of get at this builder mindset as well. So I'll share our AI Fluency Rubric, what we're doing internally to upskill our TA team, and then an example of a profile I think we need more of. And I'm very curious to get your thoughts. So yes, thank you, Miranda, putting this up on the screen. So starting for the full company, at Zapier, our CEO issued this charge a couple of years ago to really think about AI and our product for customers. But in order to be credible in that space, we had to be pretty skilled at using AI and automation ourselves. So that brought on the secondary internal call to action for our team to become more AI fluent within each of our function areas. So for example, on TA, that means we're trying to build our AI and automation skills to like connect all of our HR tech stack together for a seamless candidate experience, for example. So when our chief people officer, Brandon Samut, who I know you know as well, Justin, was working on transforming our current staff through kind of upskilling and performance review criteria, I pulled together a project team to start at the top of the funnel. So how do we think about hiring and then onboarding so that every new hire we made would be more AI fluent, more on their way to being the type of functional expert / builder that we're talking about. And so we ended up defining this AI fluency rubric, and this is our external version. So happy to share this with the folks on this call. But we were looking at mindsets, we were looking at strategic acumen, and then importantly, we started to look at builder skills. And with those 3 themes, the levels were unacceptable, capable, adoptive, and transformative. And we started to see that actually it was going to be unacceptable to have people who didn't come in with a mindset of experimentation and learning, who weren't even trying to use AI regularly, or they're just using it for no particular purpose, or those who were skeptical or resistant to changing the ways that they've always done things. But then from there, our new minimum expectation was capable. So people who are using AI and automation for a purpose. And then, of course, adoptive, using AI and automation regularly, daily, for really clear purposes for ROI. So starting to get more into the people who think through, how could I change this workflow to save myself time, to make it more efficient, to have it better quality, a better experience for my stakeholders, et cetera. And then, of course, transformative at the very top would be the highest level, which are people who can actually articulate this AI first mindset. So they're solving, problems, thinking through how AI might be able to help, or rebuild their workflows with AI, scale it to teams in the organization too. So that's just one thing that we're doing from an organizational standpoint to try to get more folks with this builder mindset in the organization within every function. And I think the next slide shows just kind of like a really clear breakdown of what this could look like for different functions. But then separately on our own team, we also needed to upskill as we were upskilling the organization. So one of the things we've been trying to do, Justin, is kind of start to train our TA team and people team to have these mindsets that you already have naturally, right? I think we're in a unique position now because TA and people leaders have a responsibility to help our organization shift into more AI automation fluency, but we also have a responsibility to up-level our own team to prepare them for the future. And our CPO says, it's basically management malpractice right now to not be supporting your team to build AI skills. But I think you've really highlighted why, because if you can have a team that can run great experiments and can start to build on their own, then you're actually able to have more local solutions for your local pain points. Some of the things we did, for example, is we taught our team, we ran a series that was literally, how do you run smart experiments? How do you report on results? And how do you carve out the time to do that? That kind of led to this half, we introduced builder goals, where everyone needs to identify a pain point in their work and then experiment with building a solution. So it's kind of the process that you were going through, where it's like, sit down, look at your process. Why are you doing it this way? Do you have to do it this way? What's a better thing? So we're trying to get people to carve out the time, which is so hard to do, right? When you're running after hiring goals, and having a goal around actually experimenting with this as well. So those are some of the things we're doing. And then I threw agents on there because I think agents seem really complicated. I know you haven't been playing around too much with agents yet, Justin, but I think you would love it if you did, because I really feel like they're the lowest barrier to entry for our non-technical team. Most, if not all of our recruiters and sourcers have agents they've built who help them kind of streamline their workflows. So
yeah. I'm curious about the builder goals, Tracy. Like, have you seen people like be able to carve out time to experiment?
Honestly, it's very, very tough. It is. So we're trying to figure out just operationally on our team is how can we build out time within the time we already have? So we have a team like all hands every 2 weeks. So instead of spending an hour to an hour and a half with like updates and like, new initiatives, can we actually carve out an hour to give people time to experiment and build? And then we have folks on the team who are better builders, who are like more accomplished builders, especially building on Zapier, who actually do things like hold office hours, hold trainings, and make this a part of our weekly rhythm rather than, oh, you have to find time, within your quarter to figure out a time to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think like you take every process, it sounds like, and you think about how you can build it differently with AI and automation. I think for people who, and even for myself, who are in the practice and habits of doing things the way that we're always doing them, you actually need some real carved out time that your manager or your chief people officer or whatever is saying, it's okay to do that because you're going to go slow to go fast. Yeah, and I think we're still trying to figure out at Zapier how we create that time for people.
Yeah. And it's not, it's time and also joy out of it. Like, I don't think I would spend that much time doing that if I didn't actually have fun.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's the fun I have in work. It's like to break and fix things and to make them more efficient. Like the actual work is like not, in my opinion, not that fun. It's like the experimentation. So it's like, it's not just like giving people time, but there's like this also like the skill and will piece that's involved. Because if it's not fun for someone, they're not going to do it.
Yeah.
So I don't know, something to think about.
Yeah, no, I love that. Absolutely. And I think specifically AI is one of those things, the more you use it, the more you see the power of it. And so unless you're playing around with it, you're not going to understand even what that could unlock for you.
For sure.
So, yeah. Here's an example, just one last quick thing. We have a new AI automation engineer for HR. So this is Emily. And it's interesting. We created this role because we realized the future of HR teams need people like you, Justin, and people like Emily embedded throughout the organization. So her role is really unique because she helps build automations for real workflows that we're running. But then we also take those learnings and share them more externally with our customers, but then also so that we can get feedback and then like bring that insight internally as well. So what I love about Emily's role is that it's kind of the strategic hire that we think more HR teams need to be making, not just automation experts, not just HR specialists, but again, people who can bridge both worlds and help your team level up to this. So Justin, I feel like you would be an AI automation engineer. I really do. I think you need to get more into like the AI scope of things. And I feel like you would have a ball of just like figuring out all the stuff that you can do. So
I need an excuse to play with it. I think it's the thing.
Yeah, we can do like a builder battle, you and I. See what we can build. You would probably beat me. Okay, let's move on though, because I want to show people your use cases because they're really, really good. And then I have some favorite ones for Zapier as well. So I think we have one quick poll here. It's like a little transition of where would you place your team on the AI fluency scale? You can submit your vote there. And then I think Alicia is putting it in the chat. But let's go into use cases, Justin, and get really concrete. So I want to have you demonstrate how you built your awesome workflow that saved your team time and money for your hundreds of thousands of interns.
Yeah. I wish, are you gonna next slide? Yeah. I wish that when we were building this, like the AI piece of Zapier just wasn't there yet. They had like the AI, like tell us what you want to do. And I would like type it. It would like kind of like build some workflows. But like the agents weren't there. And I think that'd be fun to play with now. But no longer on that team. But so the ATS piece at Netflix, honestly, I wouldn't say it was anything like mind-blowing, right? It took candidates. It allowed, like, we were able to, assign them to recruiters. Those recruiters had a lot of agency on like how they looked through candidates with efficiency, like resumes and creative filters and such. And we had great comms throughout the entire process. And I think that's truly, I think I mentioned this before, like that's the beauty of Airtable with Zapier. Like you could like do anything. Like literally anything you could imagine you'd want to happen in a workflow for a candidate, you could have. Like, so for instance, we realized, so what you see here is like how the code signal flow works. So if a candidate was moved to our technical assessment or whatever assessment in the interview that was like pre-interviews, everything was on the table. They'd go through and they would just filter them to give them the right assessment. They take the assessment and get it back. What we found was happening was, this was like an example of how we can make an adjustment. A lot of our students weren't getting these emails from CodeSignal because they were going to spam filters. So we were like, oh, let's just add an email to our Zapier flow so that when they get the CodeSignal assessment, they also get an email from the recruiter that says, welcome, you're going to get this, check your spam folders for this, yada, yada, yada. So it's like those small things you can just like on a dime just change in your process so that it's a better experience and there's just like less trouble for everyone involved. So yeah, like it was, truly, it wasn't anything mind blowing. Like I'm not going to say like we put this in an ATS that doesn't, every ATS is the same, right? The only thing that makes it different is like how customizable is it for you? Like how easy is it to use and how efficient is it to use? And it was like incredibly efficient and easy for us to use. Like if we realized we wanted to add a statement to one of our applications, we just added it to the Airtable form. Then we got our statements and we filtered it and we're able to get it to all the recruiters. Just like, yeah, I think that's what made this so easy. It was just like anything we wanted at any moment in time, we could add and build instantly. And there was no like administrative load, and there was no like 3 week wait time. We just did it. And I think that's especially important in like really, really compressed emerging talent cycles where you like start in August and you're done in December. So like you have to just be able to be super agile and move as quickly as possible, not only for your recruiters to be efficient, but for candidates, because they're going to expire soon. So yeah.
Yeah. I love this because you're talking about just like, because you built all of this and you knew how it works and you were able to build it and customize it to Netflix, like you were able to very quickly change it, anything that you wanted at any time without having to go through, as you said, like the administrative load or asking IT to change something or putting in a feature request for your ATS provider and things like that, which is awesome, which makes sense why you would build that outside of your ATS. But even for companies that aren't that big of a volume like you have, I imagine even doing this at a smaller scale, companies that are, less than 200 people, right? Being able to build something like this and be that quick to change your systems. And also, I imagine saving a lot of money to like, right? Like not having to add like hundreds of more seats and like all of this capacity with your ATS. Like this is a very like cost savings efficient solution.
Yeah, for sure. I think that the hardest part is having someone with expertise to do it. Once that person leaves and what they've built, like how do you maintain that? And that's the trickiest part of it, honestly. But yeah, it's manageable when you like learn. If you can just get people to learn.
Yeah, which is why we need more builders, right?
Builders.
And that's now the theme of the call is we just need more builders. That's very cool. How long did it take you to build this, or like how long did it take you to ship a V1 of this? Maybe. Do you remember? I know it's
I came into the team and there was like a shell in place. And then, I mean, it's important to say that like I didn't build any of this alone. Like the recruiters that we work with are brilliant. Like their minds, their ideas, like they were so instrumental in like shaping what it is we built. And I was just able to like take their ideas and put them into action, and then they tested them and we fixed them. But I think on whole, I don't know. I spent a lot of time doing it on the nights because it was fun. Maybe like a week and a half.
a week. A week. You built all of this in a week to manage hundreds of thousands of applications and no ATS. I think you're far too humble, Justin.
I mean, it's not that complicated. It's just like, yeah, I don't know. It's not that complicated.
Anybody can do it. Yeah, I know. But I agree with you. I think, again, when you have the subject matter expertise and you have the builder skills and you have the kind of the right tooling, you can do it. So let's do a second workflow that you have, because there's another cool one that you did that I think also saved Netflix a lot of money, which is like managing your entire mentoring program without buying a new tool or platform, of which there are many in the market you could spend thousands of dollars on.
Oh yeah. So we actually had an enterprise tool that our company was using, and so this was a mentoring program so our mentors were internal, the mentees were external to Netflix. They were just like freshman software students. And they were all living out of this tool, and the tool was phasing out, and we had the option of extending the contract or not. And I like worked with this tool for, a year, and I was like, we could just build this in a spreadsheet or an Airtable with Zapier. Because at the end of the day, like so many of these things, like there's like so many different like onboarding platforms and mentoring platforms that exist. And really it's just like a list of people that can talk to each other in an app. And then there's like timed material that gets delivered to them that you program. And like, that is all just a spreadsheet with things that send emails and triggers, right? But I think the tricky part of like having a tool is that like you live outside of your existing systems, right? So like no one was using this tool for any other purpose than mentorship, but we only all Slacked at each other and emailed each other. So like it seems so simple to just like take all our candidates that we had in a different Airtable, move them to this other Airtable, and then set it all up with Zapier so that our mentors lived in one place. The reminders they were getting were in Slack, where they usually get reminders anyways. Like they're getting, reminders for meetings, reminders for forms, all that stuff. And then like we had control over all the data. We could just manipulate and present it. So it was just like, I thought it was easier. It was better for us. It's cheaper for us. It was better for the candidates and for our employees.
That's awesome. Again, customizable, very responsive. You can adapt it, saved a ton of money. Again, Justin, I think you're far too humble that this is not rocket science, but not a lot of people would take the time to build this, even though it could save like incredible amounts of time and effort and money. So I think it's pretty cool. Okay. Can I show you some of mine?
Please.
I'm curious to get your thoughts. Okay.
Yeah.
I have two. I don't think we'll get to the third one just because I want to get to people's live questions, but this is one of my favorite ones. It's the headcount approval process, which we're very Slack native as well. Like we do everything in Slack. I don't use a lot of email. So the more I can push processes to Slack, the better. So when we have our execs ask for headcount, they put that into a Google sheet because we have like specific questions that we want, kind of like how you would use Airtable. And then a Slack is sent to me for approval details. It goes to me, my CFO. I'm able to, it's kind of this top box right here, with one click of the button, review everything, approve or deny the role. Once I approve it, it actually then sends that entry into ChartHop, which is our headcount planning tool. So like it officially goes into approved headcount. It also sends a Slack to the hiring manager and to the exec saying, hey, your headcount was approved. Now you're ready to kick off the role. Then it sends another Slack to my recruiting managers that say, hey, a role was approved. You're ready to kick it off. They're able to then also press one button that then they're able to launch the hiring plan, which is something that I believe is on the next slide, which then goes into our hiring plan workflow to get our hiring managers like off and running. So for the hiring plan, all of that headcount plan happens. And then for the hiring plan, it launches this workflow. This is where more of the AI comes in, where hiring managers fill out a couple of questions on like a chatbot about their role and what they're looking for. And our AI agent then looks up the repository of all the other roles that we've hired for that are from a similar department, similar specifications, or similar role, and then pulls that together with their answers and creates this whole packet of like, here's what the job description should be, here's what the interview questions should be, the rubric, et cetera. And all of that's kind of ready to go. And our hiring managers have said it gets us like 70% of the way there. So it's not perfect yet. We're still beta testing it, but it's kind of cool because it actually solves 3 unique pain points for us. One is hiring managers are getting the support to create the job description and these materials, which we know is always a struggle. Second, it's saving the manual step of our recruiters, sending this information out, collecting it, monitoring what's coming in and what's not. So that's second pain point. And then third, where I'm really excited as a TA leader, and potentially the more transformative thing about it, is that when it's building the JD, the interview, the questions, and the rubric, I can ensure that that's built off of what we want to be true in all roles at Zapier. So if I have insights about our quality of hire or something I want embedded in all of our hiring processes moving forward, instead of rolling it out and asking hiring managers to do it and like making sure and auditing and making sure it's in like every interview process, I can just train the model to add it and then it's automatically put in. It's almost like pushing out an update. Yeah. So like, if I want to say like, I want to more about candidate communication, great. Now it's in every hiring process. So that's cool. That's the dream, right? It's cool. I really love it. Huge shout out and credit to all of the folks who helped to build this along the way here at Zapier. It certainly wasn't me, but I'm very excited to like really figure out how to make this powerful and save time. So that's one.
If you built it, because you said this is what I built. It's like, what? You built it?
No, I didn't build this. I tested it a lot and gave a lot of feedback.
Gotcha.
But like far better builders than me, people like yourself help build it. Okay, this is one that I think you'll really like too. This is my second favorite one. So this is about ongoing cultivation for candidates. How do you keep candidates excited about your process? Recruiters don't have time to like send personalized emails to every candidate to continue to keep them excited about the job, right? So one of the things that I really love is if we have new content about Zapier, that's like an article about Zapier or a video or something in our Slack, somebody can put this very simple React sheet and our agent actually reads through the article or reads through the transcript of the podcast and creates a content row in our content hub that is like, here's a blurb that you can send to a candidate about this very cool article. And it kind of just summarizes it for you and puts it in something you can send. And then going on to the next slide, we have the candidate cultivation agent where we go onto our Ashby profile, that's our ATS. We open up this agent and we trigger the agent. And basically it reviews all of the candidate's background, experiences, and interests. It pulls like motivations from our interview transcripts that we have through BrightHire. It summarizes all the motivations and barriers and the recruiter can just review it and they click like, yes, that's good, or no, I want to add more, whatever, because we always keep a human in the loop there. And then it like checks the content hub that I just showed you for all of the relevant articles, case studies, events that are coming up, finds webinars that we can invite candidates to, and then compiles everything into like a resource email draft that the recruiter then like reviews and edits. And so this one's really fun because I think it's like AI orchestration. It's all these different platforms that we pull information from, but it's creating a more personalized, hopefully, but AI assisted experience for candidates, but it's very tailored to them. But instead of recruiters having to like read through every single scorecard again and like read through every single article and figure out the right one, this is where the AI assistant sort of comes in.
This would have saved us so much time back in 2000.
I know. At Teach for America, we spent thousands of hours sending emails to candidates and trying to like, exactly, I thought about you. This is one of my favorite ones.
Every Sunday, I would send emails to like all my hundreds of people I'm trying to get to apply to something.
We will never get that time back. This could have been so amazing. Okay, so I don't think I'll get to the third one because I want to go to people's questions. But there's another one that we have that's like more about candidate fraud, and that's the Pure Zap, and that's just because we have a ton of volume top of the funnel, which I'm sure you do. But for folks that are on the call, that will go out as part of the resources. Okay, so Justin, as we go into AMA, I'm just really curious, maybe one question first is like, how do you decide between what to automate and where to keep human interaction?
I'm like,
sorry, yeah.
I feel like the answer is like you gotta just automate as much as you can, right? Like there are things when you're at scale, like automate it. Like, but when you're at the very end stages of something, and you're trying to close, like you're at the offer stage, I feel like, make it personal. But when you're dealing with more than like 50, like automate it. If you can't automate it, is what I say.
Yeah, if you can do it, then do it. Yeah. I love it. There's actually I think there's a number of questions that are hitting at this theme. And so If it's okay with the group, I want to jump forward to some of the questions that got submitted, and then hopefully we can have time for some live AMA. So Justin, think of this as
let me back up and ask that one again. I think you should automate literally everything. And if it doesn't work, fix it, right? That if you like realize that like, oh, this is actually too human after you've tried to automate it and you realize this is actually too human, make it human. But I think your natural inclination should be to automate as much as you can and then pull it back when you're realizing this is not automatable, because you don't know if you can automate it until you automate it.
Yeah.
Until you try.
And I would say, of course, decisions should be made by people, especially higher decisions made by people and not by
100%.
sort of AI. Yeah, 100%. But in terms of like process, I know you come from an operations background. In terms of process, your default is to automate it. 100%. Whereas decision making, relationship building, all the things that recruiters are really good at and should be good at, that's your unique value is, totally 100%. Okay, so let's go into some of the AMA. This is these are questions that were submitted. So the first one is from Melissa R. What are the key areas of low-hanging fruit to optimize recruiting workflows? Do you want me to take a stab at it first?
Yeah.
I saw the questions in advance, so I thought about it. Sorry, Justin. Okay. Key areas to optimize recruiting workflows. I would say, I'll say two quick things. One, get your tech stack to talk to each other. So you might have a headcount tool and an ATS and an HRIS, and then you probably have a scheduling tool and maybe a CRM and like all the things. And maybe you communicate in Microsoft Teams or Slack, whatever it is. How are all of those systems talking to each other? I would say that is like low-hanging fruit. It could take a little bit more time to figure that out, but I think if you can focus on using a tool, whether that's Zapier or something else, and you really think about the AI automation orchestration and you get all of your tech stack talking to each other, so you're not moving things manually from tech stack to tech stack, I think that's like the first thing I would do, because then that's really taking out a lot of the administrative work I see people doing, moving like spreadsheets around and copying and pasting data. So that would be one. And the second thing I would say, start working with agents. They're super easy to build. You can even ask ChatGPT to help you prompt your agents. And those are probably the two that I would say.
Yeah, it's hard because it's like, it's all contextual. Like, where do you sit in the org? What can you influence? Like, sometimes you can't, you're not the one that's gonna be able to influence the back end operations. And sometimes you're just like on the ground with recruiters. Like it's hard because like, I think it just depends on that level. It depends on what your access is, but I think you just got to start with like recruiters, like figure out what it is that they're doing that's redundant. And I think that's going to be your best source, because like those are the humans doing all the work. Figure out what they're doing that's taken them forever and then start there.
I love that. Yeah. What are your pain points? Focus on the pain points.
Yeah.
That's smart. That's smart. Okay. Next question. How do you build comfort among recruiters who fear automation or AI might replace parts of their role?
I think they're going to replace your role if you don't actually learn it. Like, I think that's the thing. Like your AI's here, and unless you learn how to use it to your advantage, it will eliminate you. In my opinion.
Yeah. I think it's true. Like, automation and AI will replace parts of their role, but that's probably a good thing. I mean, if you ask your recruiters, like what aspects of the job they like more and what your more tedious admin tasks, it's probably going to be a really welcome change, I would imagine.
Right. I don't think we should fear it. I think we should like embrace it as best we can and become like experts in it, so that because AI is always, hopefully will always be a tool for now. And it can be a tool. And if you like learn how to use it really well, I think you just become recognized in this space. Yeah,
I totally agree. I have to tell this quick story. We implemented a video transcription tool to our interview process about 3 years ago. We use BrightHire, which we really like. But when I rolled it out to my recruiting team, there was some initial resistance. And I remember one recruiter saying, Tracy, I feel like taking notes while I'm doing an interview is like a core skill that I have as a recruiter. Like, it's summarizing, it's taking notes. Like, if we don't do that anymore, then like, I feel like we're losing a key piece of being a recruiter. And I had to take a step back, and I was like, that is not why you're a great recruiter. Your ability to take notes during an interview is not why you're a great recruiter. You're a great recruiter because you can ask great questions. You can be curious. You can think about the quality of the experience you're giving people. It is not about your ability to take notes, but it's just like such a good illustrative example of what you're talking about, because that's about preference and that's about habit. It's not about the core unique value that you bring to the role. So focus on the core unique values you bring. And then, as you said, like, automate the rest as soon as the technology is there.
Yeah.
I love it. All right. Who takes notes these days now? Anyway. Okay. So third question, how do you think about implementing automation and low code structures that scale over time? And that's from Hassan Z.
I don't know if I understand that fully.
How I'm taking that is like, how would we think about automation and how you think about scaling it over time? This is how I'm reading the question. Tell me if you have a different take, Justin. Is like, don't take on AI or automation to a process that's already broken. So I kind of like how you naturally think about this is like, simplify your process down to the core. Like, what is this thing actually doing? Like the mentorship program, you're like, it's just taking information from a database and it's sending out communication at a certain time. That's basically what it is. So like, I would say simplify your process and then try to use automation and AI on top of that once you have that simplified process. Otherwise, you're kind of just like adding to the muck. That's how I think about this question, is like, how you scale it over time is to start with a simple process and then continue to use automation to scale versus trying to take a complex process. Would you say something different?
Yeah, instead of like trying to patch something.
Yeah. Because that doesn't scale, because then you just have a broken process that's automated.
Yeah, and then the broken stuff's going to break around it, and then you're going to have to fix whatever you tried to automate because it's broken again. Yeah, I think I like that notion of just like scrape it down, build it from scratch, make it simple from the start, and then let it scale. But yeah, I don't know if we're getting at what Hassan wants in that question.
Okay. Well, if Hassan is out there and we didn't answer your question, please let us know and we will try again. Okay. Last one that was kind of thematic of the pre-submitted questions is, if people were coming into a brand new people org, or if you were coming into a brand new people org, what would be the first few problems you try to solve with automation? I think you sort of answered this. That's contextual.
Yeah, I think you gotta the way I see automation, it's automation is to reduce redundancy in work. Like if you're doing something that like people are doing over and over and over again, automation should be able to solve a lot of those problems. So I think like the first thing, I wouldn't try to solve someone's problems right away. I would try to understand their problems. And then from there, like collectively try to figure out where people's pain points are, where it makes sense to kind of insert yourself and go from there. But I don't think there's like an automatic, like, I'm going to come into this org and do this. Like, I think that's where you get in trouble, because then like, what if people don't want that? What if that's not possible? There's a reason why that exists the way it does. I think it always comes from a root of like understanding what it is people are doing, what it is they want to change, how would they spend their time differently, and how can you kind of give them their time back because they're all doing the same thing on repeat.
Yeah. I think sometimes it's too coming in with fresh eyes and asking like, why do you do that? Does that need to be done that way? But I like this idea of like, there's not one size fits all answer for any size company you are, but what are the pain points? What's done over and over again? What feels like business as usual that's actually a significant portion of someone's time? Yeah. I love that. I love that. Okay. Miranda, I know you're out there. Do we have any time for any like other live questions? What do you think?
Hello. We have 2 minutes. This has been such a great conversation. I think maybe we try and do one more quick question and then we can go ahead and call it. This has been so wonderful.
Okay. Yeah.
Awesome. Let's go with our most upvoted one. This was submitted from Jason C. And he asked, aside from recruitment, what other ways can we bring AI and automation into human resources?
Aside from recruitment, what are other ways we could bring it into human resources? Oh, that's a great question. Justin, you want me to take a stab at it? And I'm curious for your thoughts. Okay. So at Zapier, and I think this is something that people will get maybe after the call as well, is like, we're really trying to move from an AI adoption phase to an AI transformation phase within our people org, first and foremost, to be a model for the rest of the org at Zapier. So I think there's a lot of things that you can automate, and I won't go through all of them, but I'll say my first ones outside of TA that I think are really interesting is one, onboarding. Even before I came to Zapier, so much of our onboarding processes were automated because a lot of that is trying to get a group of people through a sequential set of steps, such as getting their swag, getting their computer, getting their tech set up, being added to the right channels. Like all of that is very process oriented and it goes in a sequence. And so I think that is like ripe for automation and AI. And then I think the second thing that I've seen is how you think about questions that you get from for any of your people functions that are providing a service to the business. So for example, I've seen companies do like a chat bot for HRBPs to answer like quick questions that normally they're DMing an HRBP about, but it's like things that they can actually answer that are more basic answers, or IT help desk. Even hiring questions. How do I open a role? How do I start this? Where do I find the job description bank? Things like that are questions that you answer over and over again. I think those are like very, very, very easy to build, like a quick chatbot, load it with the information and put it out to your organization. And that will already probably solve you a lot of time that you're spending like answering the same questions over and over again. Those are the first two that came to mind.
Yeah, that's a big, that second one you said is kind of big on Netflix. Like, we're building assistants to answer the gobs of HR questions we get from our 4,000 person org. Like, it's just not a good use of time for people to just answer the same questions that people can find themselves.
Yeah.
And I'd say that's the main thing that we're seeing with it. And I feel like for onboarding too, like, we have Notebook LM as a resource at our company, and it's just like nice to shove all this onboarding material into it, and it like builds a podcast for you, so you can just like listen while you drive, as opposed to sit and read. So yeah, just like anything that consumes lots and lots of information, like, it's just always going to be much better at summarizing instead of you just trying to read through it, because that's painful.
I love it. Justin, since you're already a builder of Zapier, you should try building on our AI chatbots. They're really easy. If I can do it, anyone can do it. So,
okay.
Again, I feel like you're gonna jump into like AI now with all of your expertise in automation, and your mind's going to be blown. So I'm really excited to see sort of what you build next. So, all right, but we're at time. Justin, this has been such a fun conversation and reunion. So thank you so much for sharing how Netflix is approaching automation and scale. I would say, like, if I had 3 takeaways from today, I would say the future of talent teams really requires a builder mindset. It's very clear that you're able to make such incredible impact within all your organizations because you have this builder mindset and curiosity. It sounds like another takeaway could be that recruiting teams that build an experiment will kind of lead this transformation and, be able to balance the automation and the AI and the candidate experience as well. And I think the other thing that we touched on, I made a note of, which is just automation works best when it can amplify the human side of recruiting. Not only give you time back to do the human side, but it can actually be more personal, more candidate-centered, and more tailored and really personal to the candidate. And I think that's when it really works best. So would you say that's fair?
Yeah.
Takeaways? Yeah. It was so great to talk to you, Justin. Thanks everybody for joining. We will give you the recording. We'll get you some of the templates for these workflows, and hopefully you can join us for some future Zapier events. But thanks to everybody who also put this webinar together on the screen here. Thanks, y'all.